decision-making in patients with chronic pain. Before the talk, we would like to ask the participants to rename your alias by your real name plus your affiliation. Thank you for coming and the cooperation. During the talk, we are going to record the screen, and a recorded version of this talk will be available online soon after the event. First, I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Mr. Vincent Xinling Zeng. Mr. Xinling Zeng is currently a PhD student in Professor Zheng Yuan's Bioimaging Lab at Faculty of Health Science and the Center for Cognitive and Brain Science at the University of Macau. His research aims to explore the neural mechanism of decision-making and cognitive impairment of neurodegenerative diseases. He specialized in multimodal neuroimaging tools, including FNIRS, EEG, and fMRI. Mr. Vincent's talk is titled Behavioral Modeling and Neuroimaging of Impaired Risky Decision-Making in Patients with Chronic Musculoskeletal Pain. Mr. Vincent, you can share your working and start now.
Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Thanks to all, I'm Xinling Zhen, the PhD student in Center for Cognitive and Brain Science, University of Macau. Today, I will share our recent findings about the impaired risky decision-making performance of chronic pain patients revealed by computational models and concurrent FNIRS. For chronic pain, what's chronic pain? Chronic pain was defined as pain lasts for 3 months, despite treatment or medication. Chronic pain was associated with emotional distress and functional disability. Meanwhile, chronic pain is rather common. About 10% of population have been widely and highly impacted by chronic pain. The induced pain can be classified into mechanical and neuropathic pain. The neuropathic pain is complex, directly related to a central nervous system, while chronic musculoskeletal pain is the most common type of chronic pain and caused by mechanical deformation. When pain was perceived by peripheral receptors, then the pain signal was sent to the brain. Multiple brain regions were activated. Firstly, for the primary cortex pain matrix, the supplementary motor area, parietal, optical, and posterior insular were responsible for pain perception and location. And the secondary cortical pain matrix, the ACC, amygdala, hippocampus, anterior insular, were related to affective experience. Furthermore, the frontal cortex, the MCC, PCC, were involved in pain-induced cognitive function alterations like memory, attention. However, for the frontal cortex, it plays an important role in decision-making, and the risky decision-making among chronic pain patients are poorly understood. Decision-making consists an integral part of daily life. We make a lot of decisions in one day. It involves a complex process when individuals try to fulfill their aims and expectations based on their judgments regarding the rewards and the risks. Decision making is complex. Many factors can influence it. Previous studies have demonstrated the experiments of pain or threats of additional pain can cause changes of risky decision-making, performance, and efforts on other cognitive tasks. But how decision-making was altered in chronic pain, it's still unknown. So we use the Boolean analog risk-taking to answer this question. The BART was widely used to measure risk-taking behaviors. All of us we know the risky decision-making behaviors were complex. Many factors can be influence the performance. We can use the computation models to separate those processes. For instance, the risk-taking and the loss aversion, the deliberation, and the updatability. A Bayesian approach to estimate those factors by update the prior belief about the model parameters with new evidence while a likelihood function resulting in a postural distribution, just like this picture. In this study, we included 19 chronic pain patients and 32 health controls. The chronic pain patients were diagnosed as the chronic musculoskeletal pain and reported chronic pain lasts over 6 months, and there was a score less than 7, and reported no history of neurological or psychiatric disorder. For the control group, they self-reported no long-lasting pain and no history of neurological or psychiatric disorder. For the paradigms, at the beginning of the pumping period, a virtual balloon was presented in the center of the screen when participants were instructed to decide whether to pump the balloon to enlarge the pre-described rewards or they can choose to terminate this trial to collect the rewards they have received in this trial. And the pumping period would be ended immediately if the participants choose to collect the rewards they have received in this trial. Or the balloon exploded itself, the participants will lose all the collected rewards on this trial. This is the feedback part. Then the fixed cross displayed in the center lasts 1 second to 2 seconds. In addition, the different colors of balloon were associated with different maximum pumping times. So, how to model the bird performance in this In this presentation, we will introduce two models. Firstly, the reparameterized four-parameter model. This model has two assumptions. Firstly, the assumption one, the participants renew their belief about the balloon exploding probability after each trial. The PK burst is the probability that the participants believe a pumping would result in the balloon explosion. If the participant successfully received the rewards in this trial, the PK burst will decrease, and also if the balance exploded, then this value wouldn't increase, and the sum of all pumps until trial k minus 1 would increase. So the PK burst would increase, while the 5 is defined as prior belief of balloon not bursting. Also, the author introduced the eta. The eta is learning rates based on the results of each trial. This model has the other assumption 2. The participant determine the optimal number of pumps before each trial. The UKL is the expected utility. It has two parts. Firstly, in this part is its probability that the balloon not burst after L pumps, and the L is the pumps, the R is the reward. The author introduced the gamma. The gamma is the risk-taking propensity. Then we can derive this formula. After get this formula, we can derive for L, and then we can get the VK. VK is optimal pumps on trial K is the which is the third formula. And after we get the VK, we can calculate the probability that the participant will pump on trial K for pump opportunity L. And considering the random property of decision making, the author introduced the tau, which is used to measure the how deterministic or how random of the choice. So in this model, 4 parameters decide the performance of the BART. The phi prior beliefs of a pump not bursting, the eta learning rates based on the results of each trial, the gamma risk-taking propensity, and the tau inverse temperature measure the deliberation of the choice. However, for these models, it exists several limitations. For instance, the updating process is inconsistent. As we can imagine, if we take part in this experiment, we will update the beliefs of the Boron explosion quickly and highly at the beginning of the experiment. After the time, we may not update the beliefs at the end of the experiment. So this is a limitation one. Meanwhile, the participant may decide to whether to pump the bottle or not just before each pump. And other factors like loss of virtue may also influence the results. So, based on those limitations, Park updates the previous model and proposed a new model, which named explosion weight mean variance model. In this model, he introduced a weight to measure how much weight to the prior beliefs. This formula was updated based on the Formula 1. The pk minus 1 is the probability that pumping has made the balloon explode up to 12k minus 1. And the eta indicates how rapidly the participant depends on the experiments. If the eta is very, very high, we can, if eta is very, very high, then this value was nearly to 0. So this part is related to, depends on the previous experiments, and this part is more related to present outcome. And if this value is nearly 0, the participants' learning entirely depends on the present outcome. If the eta is 0, this value would be nearly 1. Then the nearly 1, then no further learning occurs because this part is nearly 0. And also for the expected utility, the UKL pump, the author introduced the loss aversion, and also applying the mean variance analysis. So we can calculate the subjective utilities for pumping or not pumping balloon and K trial for pump L. Mean variance analysis is a process of waiving risks. And also, as the same, after we get the subjective utility, we can calculate the probability, actually probability that the participant will pump the balloon on K trial for pump L. So in this model, 5 parameters decide the performance of BART. The prior belief of balloon not bursting and learning rates based on their results, and the risk-taking propensity, inverse temperature, and loss aversion. For the parameter estimation, we use the hierarchy Bayesian analysis, hierarchy Bayesian analysis, it has several benefits. Firstly, HBA estimate parameters as a postural distribution instead of points estimate. For the postural distributions, gives more information, and HBA characterize similarity and differences across subjects with in a Bayesian framework, and also more accurately than individual group level maximal likelihood estimation. For compare the two models, compare the performance of two models. We use the leave out information criterion. Leave one out LOIC is an information criterion calculated from the leave one out cross validation. Leave one out cross validation is a method to estimate out of sample prediction accuracy from a fitted Bayesian model based on the likelihood evaluated from postural distribution. And the lower LOIC, the better of the fits of the model. To investigate the neural correlates of risky decision-making among chronic pain patients, FNIRS was utilized in this study. The 8-channel of the FNIRS, which measures the HBO and HBR in brain tissue following neural activation. So for the two models, firstly, we compare the performance of the two models, and the lower value of the model, the better the model is. So the explosion with mean variance model is better. Then we use this model for model parameter. The model parameter showing chronic pain patients decreased the learning rate compared to the health controls. Also, the chronic pain patients were find lower tau values, indicating a low deliberation of the chronic pain patients when they making risky decision making. For the FNIRS results, we have found a low activation in chronic pain patients in channel 4. This is the results of health controls compared to chronic pain patients. So, in this study, we have found the risky decision-making performance can be influenced by long-lasting pain stimulus. In particular, cognitive functions were influenced because cognitive activities might require allocating resources to subjective perceived pain. So the long-lasting pain would need more resources. And modeling parameters can be sensitive and accurate to reveal underlying cognitive process impairment. Compared to the health controls, the patient group showed a significant decreased activations patterns of prefrontal cortex. And for this model, implication and self-awareness, for the decision-making or other high-order cognitive process, no perfect computation models. Even in the explosion with mean variance model, other factors can be considered as well. For instance, for the learning rates in reward conditions or loss conditions might be different. Also, the adjustment after a win conditions might be greater with a greater pumping. And also the relations between cognitive ability and computational model factors can be explored. And furthermore, the relations between the neural images and the computation model factors can be explored. This is the important reference of this PowerPoint. And thanks so much to my lab members, and also thanks to Zhou Zhang and Tang Wen for the recruiting the chronic pain patients. That's all. Thanks.
Wow, thank you for your impressive talk, Mr. Vincent. Now the floor is open for the audience. You can unmute yourself and feel free to ask the question. And if you don't want to unmute, the chat box is open too. Is there any question?
Okay, thank you very much for your impressive, very good talk. I have one question. I find you have already used very good models, so many models. I'm curious about the data. You use the behavior data for the model or the nearest data?
Thanks so much for your questions. For this study, we only use the behavioral data. No FNIRS data was used to model the to the model. So
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So how to calculate the differences between the two groups in the prefrontal cortex? Then you just something like the block design, you compare the block or something else?
In the FNIRS studies, for the PowerPoint, it didn't express. For the FNIRS activation, it compares the activation in during the tasks compared to the baseline period.
Okay, I know. So you now you have not do some group comparison?
No, I have
okay,
do the group comparison because the FNIRS activation was how to weight the FNIRS activation was based on the difference between the tasks and the baselines.
Okay.
And then for we compare the differences of two groups. That's for group compare the differences between the tasks and the baselines. Then we compare the differences of two groups.
Okay. So yes, so I think if you can use the nearest data for the trial by trial analysis is better, but in your task it seems it is we cannot use the nearest data for the trial by trial and model fitting because it seems that it cannot to classify two belief because your belief is updating, but your nearest data cannot catch the brain change during the brief updating, right? So
yes,
okay.
FNIRS for this study. Sorry for interrupting your questions.
It's okay.
Okay. FNIRS some is rough. They can only captures the differences between the tasks and the baseline is difficult to capture the differences of between during the trials for the pumping or not pumping.
Yes, I know that. So have you ever think about another design is a slow evented related design? Sometimes you have a long ITI and you will got a baseline and relatively good activation for one try.
I think
consider about
okay.
that. Okay.
I think your suggestion is very good for the further exploration. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I am also use Nearest doing a computational model, but I will still analyze the data, so I'm not sure whether it is good or not. If I have a result, maybe we can have more discussion. Thank you very much. Okay.
There is a question in the chat box, and Mr. Vincent could check it.
Okay. Let me see. Dear Yuhang, for the two models, I fitted for separately for the two groups.
Yeah, I think it's better to explain myself. Can you turn to the page about the model comparison? Page 17, I think.
17, okay.
Yeah.
The
model parameters comparison.
Yes, for the leave one out cross validation. They were
sorry to interrupt, but I mean the model parameters comparison in the next two slide, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this part. Yeah, here you like you estimate the parameters for each subjects and do the t-test for them. Do the t-test between two groups, right?
Yes, I conducted the t-test between the chronic pain groups and the health control groups.
Yeah, here's the thing. Actually, I also discussed with Jianhua yesterday about the parameter comparison in the Bayesian model, especially in the hierarchical Bayesian model. It's like you use the hierarchical Bayesian models.
Yes.
So there will be group parameters and individual parameters. Like you for each two groups, control and patients, you have a group parameters, and you also have a posterior distribution for the group parameters. So theoretically, in the Bayesian model framework, theoretically, it's better to compare the posterior distribution for the two groups. I don't know if I made it clear.
Can you repeat it again?
Yeah, here's my concern that you use the t-test. It is a frequency 频率学派 method, but it is the Bayesian framework, right? You use the Bayesian model. So in the Bayesian model framework, they assumed that the parameter is represented by a posterior distributions. So theoretically, it's better to compare the posterior distribution rather than just do a t-test, because
Okay, I get it.
Jianhua comes to me yesterday and he got a reviewer advice that point these things like.
Okay, I get your meaning. Yes, the distributions gives more information rather than only a point or score.
Yeah, it's just a minor thing I noticed. Because recently, doing t-test between parameters in the Bayesian model is some kind of sorry, I think I need to use Chinese.
Okay.
就是昨天建华学姐也是跟我讨论的这个问题，就是做这个 ANOVA 或者 T 检验对于这些参数，它是在前几年是可以的，有些文章是这么发出来的，但是有些 reviewer 他会 argue 这种你的这个方法就是比较这种参数，就因为就是贝叶斯这个框架还是
对他们很
也
多
要用它的这种方法的，
比较它的这种 distribution，我看到过这个，
就是用它那个 confidence interval 去看它是不是 overlap， 而不是做这种检验。Okay.
Thanks so much for your advice.
不好意思，那个我接刚刚问题也问一下吧，因为这个问题太复杂，我还是用中文问吧。就是宇航，你刚刚说这种confidence intervals 的这种比较啊，怎么做呢？
这个理论上应该是，比如说你 control group 有，比如说这个风险厌恶的一个 parameters，control group 有一个 group level 参数，然后 patients 有一个 group level 参数，然后这两个参数都会有一个posterior distribution， 然后他要做的检验就是看这个 posterior distribution 它的
重合度 overlap，
就是它对重合度是不是大于5%，好像是有一个平行区间，然后有一些包是会有这样的方法，但是我没有用过。
这个现在也是用那个阿斯坦那个包做的吗？还是什么包啊？就现在这个结果？
阿斯坦它也是应该是可以比较那种 distribution 的，就是因为他们现在有那种T 检验啊或者什么，就是做那种贝叶斯推断的这种。
好，谢谢。
我能接这个问题问个新的问题吗？相关的问题。
好的。
对，然后我看到这页正好是在报这个结果，然后这个文章好像没有提到矫正的事情。
校正的话是，我是这个就是行为的话，因为只有5个结果，然后影像的话，这里8个结果是做了一个校正，就是校正之后就是只有一个那个 channel 它是显著的，然后这个模型的话，因为只有这5个结果，然后显著度都是比较高的，即使用 FWE 校正的话，应该也都是比较显著的，就是这2个参数的话。
对，因为我有看他现在报结果的时候，可能会分2部分报，一部分就报这个 Tmap， 然后看未矫正之前的显著的有哪些，然后再报一个矫正之后的结果。那么讨论的时候可以讨论说有哪些结果是存在风险的，然后哪些结果是较为确证的。然后另外一个刚刚宇航提到了，就是去判断是否显著的话的，就是拿那个confidence interval， 然后做 distribution 这种方法，但是其实，我看到的那个文章是 除了检验这一步之外，然后还要用传统的方法做一下，就是像你目前这样做，就是2个都要做。做完之后呢，你现在报的是 P 值嘛？它是还要报出一定要报出95%的可信区间，就是95%的可信区间如果显著的话 ，P 值是一定显著的，但 P 值显著的话，可信区间不一定会显著。然后现在很多那个杂志也可以看到，它在那个摘要里面就要求你，如果有字数限制的话，那宁可你报这可信区间，你可以省掉 P 值，也不可以只报 P 值了。
好的。
OK。
Any more questions? Well, if there is no further question, let's call it a day. And I want to thank Mr. Vincent and all the participants. Thank you for your attention and participation and making the event happen. We would also like to express our special thanks to the Administration Office of CCBS. Thank you for your support. You can subscribe our WeChat account to follow the latest information. And at last, we would like all the online audience to open up the camera and take a group photo. Thank you so much. Oh, does he has any questions? I saw the. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.